You're listening to the Business Mindset by RSC Podcast. Episode 9 is a start of a new series where we cover the functions and departments in a business. We will discuss common pitfalls and what's needed for the department to run well. This episode is an introduction to the journey of building a business and to our methodology.
Hello and welcome, everybody. We have a new series starting, a new theme. We're going to be sharing with you our business methodology developed by Robert Chun, who's going to share a little bit about the history. Robert Chun of RSC Business Group has been coaching and consulting for 34 years, and he has a business methodology that I truly believe in, and he's shared it with me, and it's allowed my businesses to grow as well. So we wanted to share with you our methodology to support you and what you're up to in the world. We also have today with us Brandon Ling, an affiliate of Robert Chun. He has RSC Business Group Alpha. You've been practicing the methodology and working with Robert now for 14 years, Brandon. Is that correct?
Yes.
We have myself, Aurelia Yusita, RSC Business Group Sales. And I'm the newest kid on the block with just 3 years. And I have very passionately, enthusiastically applied the methodology into my business. Robert, why don't you take it away and share with us, how did this all come about? How did you create this methodology?
When I began my work in 88, it was about performance at the level of individual. How to take somebody who is dealing with internal states, emotions, thoughts, feelings, and whatnot, move them, motivate them to take right actions, and then support them as they go through the changes to become a better person. And a lot of times it was incredibly hard, and there are failures and successes, but mostly successes because it took a lot of effort to transform a particular individual to produce results. Over time, they became really successful. And what ended up happening was the volume of the work simply increased linearly at first, geometrically later. And we had to get helpers and support people to help them. And we went through the cycles of expansion and growth. What I found out was that as they grew, different sets of skills were required. So first they will promote. They will learn to give samples, sell more stuff, and then sell higher level stuff, build a relationship, maintain a database, make offers, follow up customer service, manage money, pay taxes. Eventually, you had to hire people, subcontractors and regular people, and then to train them. But what happens after a while was that the amount of people would increase from, say, 5 people to 10 people, 20 people, 50 people, and they wouldn't stop. And the finance department had to get better to make sure people got paid properly, the reserve got created. And the communication itself became a problem because you're not talking to 100 people. And how do you move 100 people in the same place, same direction? And the quality starts suffering because new people come in who never had the exposure of the first generation of workers. And the pace would change as well. And the documentation that never existed before would become a major chaos. And we had to create documentation. And then eventually we had to research and develop ourselves into the next level of product and services. They took a whole cycle of somebody going through the whole cycle. I found out every company went through that cycle. Marketing, sales, customer service, financial systems and servicing, human resources, quality control, training development, communication, administration, R&D, just went through the whole cycle. So I said to myself, after going through 10, 20, 30 people, what's going on here? Because they're all different companies, from manufacturing to distribution to legal services to medical services to educational companies. So I found there was this common theme that runs through. And what theme was basically this. What organizations does, they do stuff that individuals cannot do by themselves over time. And they're able to scale and keep on existing no matter what happens to individuals. And I also found out that all it does is it makes a promise, keeps a promise, and checks a promise. And all the leader does is make sure they're accountable for the promise. They get acknowledged for the result other people produce. They clean up other people's messes. They pay for things that are different. As I discovered that there was actually a path to an organization of how to make a promise, how to keep a promise, how to check for a promise on the promises. And after working with whole groups of people, we codified it. And what I've found so far is every company follows this methodology, but they just don't know it. So what's possible now was ability to take a new business, train them from the start as that business, at a larger size, so that they could grow into it. Our methodology is really, we don't grow the companies. Companies start off big. So you could say that the one person holds all the departments, all the managers, all the executive owners' position. And then as the company grows, all we do is we replace that person's position that's held by that one person with another person. And that's how the organization grows. So we don't grow in a traditional sense. We grow in a sense that you start off as a large organization. You start off big. You start off with all the positions of a whole organization chart filled. It might just be your name. But as we grow, we hire people to take over those spots. So as a result, there is no traumatic change. There's less and less and less work for the owner of a creator of business. And sometimes that happens really fast. And sometimes it happens really slow. But that's our methodology. Our methodology is after they reach a certain point where they overcome their problems and issues, we build an organizational chart and we teach people how to fill those spots so that eventually they're free from it. Otherwise, what happens is the owner is trying to figure out what to do, what not to do. Because what happens is this, in the beginning, you're it. There's nobody else. You're the marketing, you're the sales, you're the customer service. You're the financial services, you're quality control, HR, everything. And then what you got to figure out is, what does it take for me to buy my way out of my job? Because what you don't know is you think, hey, I can start this. I can start 3, 4, 5 of these companies tomorrow. Not a problem. But that's only if you're small. You want to get bigger. That means you have to take on being an organization. And they're replacing yourself completely over time and overcome your inertia of doing that. The key is to be a large organization from the beginning. And then finding the people who can do those jobs equal to you or better than you and training them. And knowing that you're going to have to keep replacing them forever because nobody's going to be with you forever, even though you want to. Because they're going to get married, they're going to have kids, they're going to get older, they're going to have different needs than you can provide. So the consistency you're going to find out is the organization itself, not the individuals. Even though there'll be individuals you care about and you'll be friends and be knowing them the rest of your lives. But as a company goes, what you're creating is an entity that eventually can live by itself without you. And they will provide for you and take care of you. So that's the, I guess, bit of RSC philosophy is starting an organization and taking the time to nurture and grow it and bringing people into it to take over positions that you used to do. And doing it in such a way that's methodical and you're clear that's what you're doing.
Thanks for going over the history and how it came to be and why it works, right? It's why it works. And I really love how you said, you start out big, right? And we really turn it around a little bit.
Yeah, because we like to think because we're one person, we're not a global company. No, you start off as a global company and then you go through the activity of filling all different positions. And if the organization is strong enough and big enough, it allows for all the human foibles and errors. So everybody has individuality and freedom, and yet it all works cohesively.
And I love how you mentioned it's about, buying your way out of your own company, right? And we do that a lot, is support owners and not getting stuck. Because one of the reasons I find owners go into becoming an owner is they want freedom. And then their experience when they start working is less than free. They're actually working more hours when they come to us. They're overwhelmed.
Organization gives you freedom, but you need to create that from the get-go. The toughest part is you create something, but you have to keep changing it because you did not account for yourself being a large organization.
Brandon, if you can go a little bit through the divisions and departments, and if you could also cover a little bit of the managers, executives, and owners. This is kind of almost like a map, organizational chart of what it all looks like. It's great for all of our listeners just to have, as how businesses work, whether you're an employee, whether you're going to start your own business, whoever is listening. I think this is really great information.
This will be a general overview then, the Coles Notes version. The other episodes in this series will go through each role or part or function in more detail. This will be an overview of the organizational chart. In terms of hierarchy from top to bottom, you have the owners. In the beginning, it's one owner usually, or maybe they're partners. If it's a larger company, then you also have owners and board of directors. But then you have the executives below the owners, then managers or middle managers, and then you have the frontline workers. It's a larger organization, you have more layers of management. When it comes to the executives, you got typically the CEO who determines what direction to go in, ensures a viability of the organization and creating the future. You got the COO or Chief Operating Officer, which is about how to make it happen, what needs to be done, ensuring that the organization is operating in a way that will achieve the goals that the CEO has set out, and also works with the CFO or the Chief Financial Officer around creating the plan and the goals and the targets in terms of what's realistic. This is how things operate, and also this is how much it'll cost, how much money we can bring in. So they need to work together in terms of creating that plan. And those are the three executives that are important.
Brandon, can I interrupt you and add something to that? So if you're a CEO, you have two, right hand and left hand. Right hand is the people in operations, the COO that manages operation. Left hand is the finance. You handle money. So by handling the people and the money, you're able to produce results. If you have a good enough organization, CEO can say, this is what I want. And the COO can figure out how it's done, why it's done, what the consequences are so that they can make a choice. In large organizations, what the CEO does mostly is learn and make choices. That takes 40, 60, 80 hours a week because there's so many enterprises happening. And there are a lot of COOs and managers that's carrying it out. In a sense, CEO is like a CPU chip that analyzes everything.
Also, naturally, as a company becomes large, or depending on the field, you'll have other C-level executives, whether it's chief marketing officer, chief technology officer, and so on. Some of you will find that maybe you learned something else, whether it was in school, a textbook from somebody else. This is our point of view of how we divide the different functions in a company. It's just a different point of view. In the end, those functions exist no matter what. They just may be called different things by different people. We got the external division that deals with the outside world, your customers, your prospects. And inside of that external division, you got the marketing department, which is about creating the existence of your business in the minds of the public, letting the public know that your business exists and what it does. And from there, you can generate leads. You got the sales department, which closes sales, makes sales offers. And then what we call the customer service department. In our methodology, what we're calling customer service would be the equivalent of customer retention, how to serve the customers more so that they get more of what they want. So you could also think of it as customer service / retention department. So that's the external division, and they bring in the money. Then we got the fulfillment division, which is about delivering on the promises that the external division made to customers. The finance department, which is handling the money. We have the delivery or production department, which is actually providing the service to the customers, or if it's a product, it can include things like manufacturing and everything required to deliver the product to the customer. The HR / personnel department, which includes hiring, firing, but also training people. And that's a function that a lot of companies don't do, or they don't do enough of. Training everybody in the company to be able to perform in their jobs and do a really good job. That's what's required to deliver on the promises that the sales and customer service department make. Then we have the internal division. So the internal division includes the administration department, which is about all the processes and procedures, how things are run, how things are supposed to be done so that the company can run well. We also have quality control to ensure that the departments and everybody inside those departments are doing what they're supposed to do, that they're following the procedures and correcting errors when needed. We also have the communications department, which is like the history of the company. It also helps with the routing of communication within the company and to ensure that, let's say, the executives or the managers are getting the information that they need to be able to make decisions, not too much, not too little. We have the R&D department, which does research, ensures a company is relevant to the current market through market research, surveys, and so on, as well as helping develop new products, new services, identifying new markets to pursue or new divisions or companies to build so that the company can continue to serve the marketplace.
How do the divisions and departments develop over the lifetime of the business, would you say, Robert?
It starts so simple. You're a 16-year-old that wants to make some money and knocks on somebody's door and says, I got a lawnmower. I can do a mowing of the lawn for $50. Guy says, okay, you're a nice kid. I'll do it. So there's $50 that comes along. He makes the money and he pays taxes. Life goes on. But as he grows older, he wants to make more money, right? So he goes and knocks on a few more doors. So what he's doing, he's promoting himself, what he does. He goes through rejections and whatnot. And he finds out that a lot of people don't want to pay $50 for the lawn for a month. So he figures out a way and goes, you know what? I'll mow the lawn for today only, $10. $10, no problem. So does it. He likes the lawn. So goes back later and says, did you like the lawnmower? Would you like to do it again? So as a result, he learns to give people what people can take at that point with no risk. And then learns to upsell into monthly lawn mowing service. Over time, he gets enough money to buy sneakers and nice clothes and so forth. And other kids go, hey, where are you getting all this money? Well, I'm just mowing the lawns of all the neighborhood. Can I do it? Sure. And in the beginning, he doesn't know how much to pay. He says, look, you're my friends. You're doing the work. I give you most of the money or some of the money. And then they make a deal. And then later he finds out that between the gas for the lawnmower, printing flyers and running around, it costs so much money. He can't really go back on his friends. So what he does, he gets new friends and for a cheaper amount to mow the lawns. And so now what has happened is he went from simply marketing and selling and upselling to tracking money and hiring people. And he got a second generation of workers now doing the work at a cheaper rate. And he tells the first guy, don't tell how much I pay you. You're special, right? And this goes on. And then over time, the whole neighborhood ends up becoming mowed by him. And other people talk about him. So it's like he's so busy. He cannot see straight because he went from mowing lawns to managing these guys to having somebody manage these, young teenagers who doesn't show up sometimes to doing paperwork. He goes, I just did to get some sneakers. What happened to me? And then that goes on, and over time, this lawn mowing extends services to like tree trimming. We'll trim the trees for you, to dog walking, to other things. Suddenly, he went from a lawn mowing company that does lawn mowing to tree trimming, dog walking, babysitting, just goes on. And so now everything is a mess. He tries to bring somebody into all the paperwork and stuff. Guy's really expensive. His mom got involved. Because suddenly there's all this money coming in. So, honey, where's all this money coming from? And they're giving you all cash. What's going on? Well, how are you managing your money? Well, the guys come in at the end of the day. They put the cash. They show me the cash. I give them a cut, and I put the rest of it into a big bucket. You can't do it that way. But, Mom, I'm only like 19 years old. Mom gets a bookkeeper and tracker, open a checking account. Goes from an underground cash business that's taking over the town into a legitimate business. Suddenly, he goes, I gotta pay taxes? Yeah. You're not mowing lawn for like 100 people. You got all these people. Yeah, but they're my friends. You got some guys that are like 25 mowing for you now. You got some guys at 30 trimming trees for you now. Do you know about the workers' comp insurance and all? No, I don't know anything about that stuff. So suddenly he feels really messed up because he's only 19. He's makes so much money to buy clothes and sneakers. Suddenly you got to pay all these bills like taxes, workers' comp, insurance, and the little garage corner that he used for, his office, he can't do it anymore. So then you got to like find different place to rent because the garage is running out. It's being run by two girls. So there's all the paperwork for him, and they're all part-timers. So what happens is he went from a little lawn mowing service to suddenly to underground, right? Pure cash business, to mom finding out, to become legitimate business and having a bank account and getting a license and DBAs and so forth. So by 20, he's now mowing or handling like half the town. And everybody's curious, right? And now what has happened is adults are getting involved. So that they're putting in things like proper procedures for introducing people to what to do when you get a 15-year-old, 17-year-old, 19-year-old, 25 years old, different workers and vendors. What is it to hire people only for a week, for a month, for a year, and then doing all the taxes? And he gets so little left over. He gets pissed. I used to make so much more money when I work for myself, when I work my hard. And he's like, I don't do any work anymore. They won't let me touch this stuff. And I get so little. Well, what has happened is the company grew so much that instead of him getting like 80% of the money underground, he's now getting like 30%, 20% of the money after paying everybody off. But the company kept on growing, and then it's not under his control anymore. It's his mom, his dad, his friends, everything, just getting growing, right? He's upset. He doesn't know what to do. And some new girl comes in and goes like, hey, look, tell me your problems. So he tells them all the problems as well. Sounds to me like you don't have a lawn mowing business anymore. You're like a concierge business because you're babysitting, walking the dogs, near the lawn, cutting the trees, and you have somebody picking up a dry clean for so-and-so and running around, right? So you're now a concierge service. So you should change your name and do it right. So he now rebrands it and then goes like, you're a really smart girl. You already know stuff. So can I have you work for me to research on me? Research and stuff? Sure. So more people, more overhead. And then it kept on growing. So now he has a big concierge company that handles like 70% of his town. It's just growing. He thinks he's done now. He's like 21. He has enough money. He got the car, got the clothes, got the girl. He's all set. But what happens, people now comes to me and goes like, John, I've been with you for like 4 years now. So can I get a raise? I don't know. To give everybody raises, he's forced to grow the company. So now, after 3-4 years of work, he comes with a better printer, better flyer, better offers, and blankets the next neighborhood. Back of the little 3x5 card is a recipe for like a Chinese chicken recipe, Indian curry recipe, and so forth, and blankets on a regular basis. One day, he gets a call. It doesn't go to Tom, but it comes to him because it's overloaded calls coming in. He goes like, hello, can I use your service now? Sure. How'd you find me? Oh, from a flyer you dropped 6 months ago. How do you clean now? Well, because we kept that because you had the recipes in the back of the card. So I have a little book of recipes because you're blanketing our area for a while. I got like 10 recipes for good food, and I figured I should try you out. Company kept on growing like a weed. Eventually, company figured out what to do, and it stays within John's philosophy of doing the work, and it grows. Now, what has happened is he started off by promoting and marketing to Mr. Jones, Mrs. Jones across the street. That turned into now delivering the service. He went back to somebody else and offered again and grew. But over time, because of he did such a good work, all of his friends came to play. In the beginning, he did not know, so he hired people a lot of money. But next cycle, learned to do it for cheaper price, make the money. He learned to do things right. Went from an underground business to above ground business because his mom found out about the stash of money in his bedroom, right? Basically, they figured out his methodology was less than perfect. And so he went from below ground to above ground. And then he learned to expand further. And he listened to other people. And he went from being a lawnmower business to concierge business.
That's so beautifully illustrated. You're such a great storyteller. And, it showed how companies grow over time. It's like, it's not always that, we think we're going to grow. We just grow with the demand and we're kind of going with the flow of things. And I remember when you were first training me, Robert, I think you were sharing with me the methodology where I had my first business. And at the time, at that moment, I was just like, I was tired. I was not receptive. I was really grumpy. I just didn't even really want to be on the call, I remember.
I worked hard.
So, and Robert looks at me. He's like, the jingle, like, row, row your boat. And like instantly I perked up, right? Because like, okay, I'm like, this is more interesting now. A jingle? Why not? And Robert goes, the jingle, row, row your boat. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And he goes, yeah, so row, row, row your boat. That's sales and marketing. Gently down the stream. That's the fulfillment. That's keeping your promises. Merrily, 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 merrily. That's admin. Okay, that's adding administration and processes and things. And then life is but a dream, right? And then you said, and then a little bit goes to the owner, and then you start the whole process again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bigger and bigger. And, it's that storytelling that I will never forget the jingle, first of all. And I have literally built all my businesses with that jingle. I'm like, okay, where am I in the jingle?
Right. And then it cycles again bigger, right?
Yes, exactly. But it was, you found a way to communicate with me and to deliver the information that I needed to support me. And I think this story here, there's so much to take away from it, because sometimes as owners, we don't really know what's going to happen next. It's because it's a very creative process. Nothing exists already. We take for granted that sometimes when we worked in companies, we had this process and we had this process and, this was working, and we took it for granted how well it flowed. And when we go into having our own business, none of those structures, none of those systems, nothing exists, and you're building everything for the first time.
Sometimes people forget this, what was causing it or the source. If I'm a worker in a company and I go, okay, I'm really good at this, then I decide I'm going to go start my own business. Oftentimes people overestimate how much they were causing. When they were an employee, they were following someone else's process. It's not just following the process, because they can replicate that. The part they often forget is the whole structure around them that the organization had that helped them produce or perform. And then when they go to start their own business, those structures don't exist unless they build them. But they weren't always aware of what those structures were. So then they don't think of building them. And they go, okay, well, I used to be good there, but here it's not quite working as well. What's happening? Why? That comes down to the processes and systems and procedures. It's not just about us on our own.
Mm-hmm.
It's the connections and the structures that we're part of. And so with a business, we have to build those or pay someone to build them for us.
Or work with somebody who can.
Right.
And one of the things you have to understand when you start a business, you're an interruption in everything else. So if you are a business, you come into existence, you didn't exist before as a business. So therefore, other people will say, why are you disrupting the way of life that I've been living without you being a business? So you need to understand who you are as a business, interruption in the way status quo. So you have to learn to understand that. And as you interrupt their process, you got to do it in such a way it doesn't impact you negatively. One of the most important part of a business is not just having a great idea, but sharing a lot of great ideas, getting a lot of input and keep adjusting to it. What a lot of people do is they have an idea, they take action right away. What I recommend that you do out of this podcast is that you have a great idea, share it. Have that idea be examined, attacked, even destroyed, but from there, use it as a feedback instead of dangerous things to make it a better idea until it can be something that can be taken actions upon.
I really love what you mentioned about the web of the organization. And so I have a few employees now, and the way that, I run things is I really love contributions. So I encourage people to share how to improve things and what they'd like to see in their own I wouldn't even call it a department, but their role. And people come back to me with ideas, and I'm finding myself being like, okay, that's really great, but you're going to have to talk to this person because if you make this change, it overlaps, and then that's going to affect this person. And then if you want that, that's a really great idea. We're totally on the same page. I've been meaning to do this, but there's also this, and this to consider because it's going to affect this, and this, right? And so one of the really great things that you taught me, and that I've had conversations about that people are really surprised. One of my colleagues, a longtime dog walker, I shared this with him. He has had this kind of fear of entering the market because there's some really big players in my neighborhood that have been around for 10, 20 years. These are large kind of companies with lots of structures and systems. And he hasn't wanted to kind of enter, even though he's really well known in the neighborhood. He's very talented at what he does, very good at what he does. He's seen me compete with some of these larger companies, and he's just blown away by it, and I have your methodology, right, Robert, obviously. So, it's much easier for me. And what he learned and what he shared with me and what I've been sharing with him is, so as a small business, you're much more nimble, right? Like you can tailor offers. You can look at R&D a little bit more. What I'm creating is the other companies can't create as well. I can apply feedback right away. I can create a new, strand of services, and I don't need to notify 40, 50 people of this. I don't have to change an app, that where clients, decide which service they want. I don't have 40 changes if I want to roll something new out.
Right.
So I can be a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more tailored. I can customize things to each person. And so as a small business, you do have that luxury. And then as you get bigger, what happens is you are not able to go as fast, right? Because now you're in a unit, you're moving. And this dog walker actually said, because he happens to walk a lot of dogs, and he's like, these dogs are like an octopus, like they're like, like they're like tentacles that, you're all moving at the same time, right? I personally don't, but his model does. And he walks like 8 sometimes to the dog park that he's had. As the business grows bigger, you're going to move slower, but you'll cover more ground. I personally cannot do as much as I used to do. And I go slower, and my conversations have slowed down for just different perspectives. Teaching some software that somebody has to download, giving them a timesheet. I can't just add a new client and have somebody walk them the way that I would have been, just like it would have been so easy. So now there's a lot more to do.
Right.
But I can cover more ground, right? So I have more people that know about me, and I have more referrals now, and I have more support, and I don't have to say no to clients. So they experience a better level of service and things like that. There is that transition period from being really quick and nimble and agile and dynamic and disruptive and creating new. And then as you become more of an organization, even as an owner, you learn to slow down a lot.
It's a different state. What's possible as roles become more organized is it can grow even faster.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you found this episode valuable. We'd love to hear your feedback. And if you want to contact us, there are links in the description.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
The Business Mindset by RSC Podcast is brought to you by Robert Chun at rscbusinessgroup.com, Aurelia Usita at vayu.ca, and Brandon Ling at rscbga.com. The music is provided by Davey Harris at daveyharris.com.